Thanks very much for you. So let's take a quick look at the markets and we'll show you what's happening with the Rand. We start with the JSE, both local and international factors holding the JSE flat today. Global markets coming under pressure from disappointing US retail sales figures. And here at home, poor mining production figures and load shedding concerns raising fears over the country's economic growth rates. We had some souring sentiment there. The big retailers and banks were down. Miners making a positive contribution today, with AngloGold Ashanti up more than 2.5%. And when we look at commodity prices themselves, another day of gains for Brent crude oil. It's now sitting above $64 a barrel. That's a 3-month high, by the way. What's behind it? Cuts in supply from the oil cartel OPEC and optimism that the US-China trade talks are progressing. And when that happens, you see people interested in that oil, the Brent crude oil. The currencies? Well, no love for the Rand on Valentine's Day. Analysts say continued concerns over embattled Eskom and its impact on the local economy soured sentiment. So the Rand sitting at 14.19 to the US dollar, 16.01 to the euro, 18 Rand 17 cents to the British pound. Well, Viv Govendor from RandSwiss joins us now for some commentary on the markets, and we also want his take on Eskom. Viv, let me start with the question on the Rand. So when I spoke to you earlier this week, you said that the Rand's weakness was basically due to international factors, but we've got to say now, earlier in the day, 14 Rand 24, thereabout. Eskom has to be playing a role here.
You couldn't say for certain at the beginning of the week because the announcement of load shedding happened just before the market even opened. And we had the weekend, so we had no idea how much it was. There was some possibility there. We saw us relative to the rupee and relative to like the other, like New Zealand dollar, Aussie dollar, slightly weaker as well. So there was something in there. But now it's very clear that we are definitely taking the effect of load shedding coming through. I mean, we are significantly weaker than we were on Monday, where we were early last week. I mean, the difference is like a rand basically, and against the dollar. And the dollar has actually weakened against the euro late in the afternoon because of those bad retail numbers that came from the US. So in fact, if to a certain extent the number, the rand dollar figure doesn't quite reflect just how badly we did today.
And, you know, just to give consumers a sense as to why this is important, I look at the oil price. It's now above $64 a barrel. We are looking at the Rand, 14.20 or thereabout. You put those two factors together and I get concerned about inflation and petrol prices.
Well, most certainly the petrol price is going to rise very soon and very sharply as well. I mean, you'd expect something like the Rand rise at least coming through in the very near term. And I think that's something that we've got to be careful going forward as well, because OPEC seems to put its foot down when it comes to the oil price, saying we're going to defend this thing, push it up as much as we can. To a certain extent, we were, at the end of last year, we were getting the benefit of the Trump kind of like, you know, because a mania, because basically what Trump did was say, you know, I can forgive you with the Khashoggi thing, you just keep the oil price low and for a while. And now I think Saudi Arabia thinks that part of the thing has gone away. His attention is distracted by other things, and therefore they can let the oil price drift up higher. So we could be seeing $70+ oil prices in the not-too-distant future.
Not a pretty picture for us here at home. Back to Eskom. So the unions will hear nothing of a split. President Cyril Ramaphosa saying this unbundling into 3 entities of Eskom will not pave the way for privatization. These are still state-owned companies. But it is threatening our growth prospects, isn't it? So, I mean, to what extent will what's happening with Eskom, because you need power to run factories, to what extent will this pull down our growth?
Oh, it's tremendously. I mean, Eskom at the moment, I mean, we've already seen the people talk about the growth rate going between from like 1.7%, some people are saying for this year it's probably going to be between 1 and 1.5, and that's assuming things are sorted out for the rest of the year. If should we see this pursue, you know, go on for much longer, we could be seeing another, you know, sub 1% growth rate for the year. I mean, last year was sub 1%, this year sub 1%, and considering the fact that our, you know, population grows at a faster rate than that, that means that, you know, in real terms, everyone's South Africa is getting weaker, and so people talk about 9 years of lost, you know, growth. We could be talking about 11, 12 years of lost growth if it becomes an issue like this. What they need to show with regards to the distribution and the splitting into 3 parts is that, you know, the power generation part should have the ability. The distribution part is very difficult to basically have, you know, more than one power line. But you can have more than one company making generation in the country. And if you're going to allow competition among generators, they might cause, you know, lower costs to come through. If you allow, like, you know, for instance, municipalities that are, you know, to force the distributor to basically use a power station that they want to have nearer where they are, that might also cause some competition in the system. And just look at what telecom was as a monopoly and how they were got destroyed when mobile phones came into play. I think something similar is possible with the electricity sector, but there needs to be some kind of protection for newer entrants and some kind of forcing of Eskom and the different parts of Eskom to basically use different, different competitors to their original Eskom paths, basically, going forward.
Come next week, Wednesday, we have the national budget. I think many people will be more interested in what's happening with Eskom and other state-owned enterprises than they will be with budget allocation. But this is going to be a very big feature in this year's budget, the problems at Eskom, because we're talking about this hurting the fiscus's healthier 420 billion rand debt.
Yeah.
What do you think will surface with Eskom next Wednesday?
Okay, look, I mean, it's very difficult for government to do what needs to be done because it's just ahead of an election. It's almost impossible. I mean, you'd have to find some of the strongest politicians on the planet, and they would still bow before this kind of pressure just ahead of an election, you know what I mean? And so I don't think there'll be any surprises. I mean, what they should do is probably look at the VAT rate again, unfortunately. Our fiscus needs something at the moment, and at 45% top marginal tax rate for high-income earners, I mean, there's not much more you can go beyond that before you start finding the effects of the Laffer curve in which you are actually increasing rates and not really doing much about revenue. So probably the VAT should be looked at, but it won't be. I don't think it will be. We need to look at some kind of, rejigging of the of government's plans for the SOEs, because it's not just Eskom. Of course, Eskom is by far the biggest, but there's a trend around there that there's certain things that where certain jobs are protected, whereas other people are not. I mean, think about it. A person working at Eskom is making quite a bit of money. A person in a squatter camp that buys a loaf of some chocolates or something is paying VAT that goes towards paying this thing effectively. And so how are you justifying subsidizing these highly protected workers with the taxpayers money? It doesn't make sense from a progressive point of view. So I think there needs to be some kind of curbing of this year. Yes, I know it's very difficult for the unions and so on, but government workers, especially state-owned enterprise workers, are some of the most highly paid workers in the country, and they're far out of scale as to what the rest of the country is being paid. And therefore, internationally, you compare where the international counterparts are, they're also out of out of alignment there as well.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Viv Govendor from RandSwiss bringing us an update on what he thinks is the main factor behind the rand and also his take on Eskom. Remember, more business news coming up at 10 o'clock tonight. We'll take a look at the day's market activity, also zone in on some of the implications of load shedding. That's where we leave it for now, Vuyo.